Okay, and we are back. Sorry, folks, due to technical difficulties, the show was cut off halfway through Stuart's review of Ratchet and Clank. So here he is, and hopefully we'll have the clip to play in a moment as well. So over to you, Stuart. Ratchet and Clank, the movie.
Yeah, the gremlins hit the system. You know what? Play the clip now, because I think it might have cut out just as I actually finished explaining the basic plot. So.
Right. Okay.
Although I am happy to help with the mission in any capacity, I find this arrangement slightly embarrassing.
I'm sorry, but you're the only one who's been inside Drek's Warbot factory.
Besides, this is the best way for you to keep up. Whoa!
Nice backpack. Remember, your thrusters are powered by Ratchet's suit, so don't try any solo flights, okay?
I shall endeavor to
He's in good hands, Alaris.
You sure you want to take the, extra baggage? No offense, but we're dropping straight into a cauldron. And do you know what's inside that cauldron?
Is it danger?
Yes, it's danger.
Let's roll!
So in the clip there, you heard Rosario Dawson. Also thrown into the mix, you've got Paul Giamatti, who voices Chairman Drex, John Goodman and Sylvester Stallone as well, who plays this henchman of Chairman Drex. Now with a voice cast like that, you expect the movie to be funny, to be interesting, to flow along really well, when in fact it's neither of any of them. The animation is probably the best thing you can see about the film. It just doesn't have any humour there that would make kids laugh. When in fact, just before we actually cut off, I was stating that I was in a screening with around about 10 people, and 4 of them were over the age of 25. That's not including myself. A group of 4 were over the age of 25, and they laughed throughout the film because they got the jokes. Because my guess is they played the original video game. After when I came out in the screening, I was hearing a conversation between them, and they definitely had played the video game because they were going, you know what, that wasn't in the original one, but it's in the remake of the video game, and they were being nerds. So there was just even though I played them myself,
Did you point at them and go nerd?
No, because I actually understood what they were saying, so it would be like me pointing at myself going nerd when in fact I do that all the time anyway. But yeah, they got it, and there was only one joke that made me laugh, and it was a nerd joke which involved.
It sounds really painful when you do it.
I meant it to do like that, but when it involved Jack and Daxter and Sly Raccoon. Which you haven't a clue what I'm talking about there.
Jack and Daxter, I know the name. I don't know the game.
Daxter.
Yeah.
That's the game. Jack
I know.
And Daxter.
I know. I don't know the game though. I haven't played it. Is what I mean.
But Sly Cooper, which is a raccoon as well. There was a little joke which involved them taking a slight little stab at them, but it was a funny in joke, and that was the only thing that made me giggle. The surprising thing that comes out of this, now this is really, really rare that it happens, is the video game based on the movie is exponentially better. It is an absolutely fantastic video game because I'm playing through it at the moment myself, and is brilliant. The film isn't. So it's one of those rare occasions where the video game is better than the film.
That's often the case though, isn't it? As I thought films were terrible.
No, not video games that's based on the movie.
Okay.
You've got movies that's based on video games where the movie is worse than the video game, but when you have a video game that's based on the film, they are normally really, really bad. They are really, really bad, to be honest. So it's that rare occasion where the video game is better than the movie, because the video game is based on the film.
Okay.
Sony did something really weird as well. If you play the video game and stream it on somewhere like Twitch or whatever, they cut out any of the cutscenes because they didn't want people to see the cutscenes because it would be like them watching the film, which is an interesting thing to do. But I would just say, if you've got a PlayStation 4, go out and get the game. Just avoid going and seeing the film.
So adults with kids definitely avoid this then.
Pretty much, unless you are a huge, massive fanboy when it comes to the Ratchet and Clank series. They're the only ones who are going to get something out of this film, and it's a small minority that it went in at number 7 at the US box office. I think it took like $4.5 million its opening weekend. It's going to struggle. I think it might be in the bottom end of the chart when it comes out on Wednesday.
Okay, Demolition is the other big film this week. Directed by Jean-Marc Vallée. It is a story of the character played by Jake Gyllenhaal, who plays Davis. And it starts off very quickly in the film basically with him being in a car with his wife, who is telling him, she's talking to him about things like the fridge that is leaking. She's saying to him about, you should always be looking around and paying attention to things like this, and if stuff like this needs to get done, you don't really sort of see it, sort of thing. Not in a bad way, just generally chatting. They have a car accident, and unfortunately she is killed. He then has the reaction to it of that he oddly doesn't really have any kind of feeling any one way around it, the whole thing of the crash, her death, and he starts to look at things kind of in a different way, that he starts to sort of notice things he hadn't before. He starts seeing sort of everything around him slightly different, seeing the world in a different way, and starts to look at things like the whole thing of the fridge leaking and stuff like that, and in particular sort of having to then deal with his wife's parents, his in-laws, the father of which is played by Chris Cooper. Here's a clip.
I don't think Phil liked me that much at first. I grew up in Jersey. I didn't come from money, and I puked on the ice sculpture at our engagement party. Also, he told me once,
I don't like you, Davis.
Julie was a nice girl, a good person. She worked with special needs children. She snorted when she laughed and cried every time they showed footage of the towers falling. Other than that, I don't think I knew who she really was. She always said I didn't pay attention.
When he's actually at the hospital, after just being told his wife's died, he goes to use a vending machine. The sweet that he chooses gets stuck and doesn't come out. He, of course, being in the kind of the state he's in, takes notes of the machine details and starts writing letters to the vending machine company, and including things like that voiceover that he had there, telling them about and the way he says it is basically setting out the whole situation of what happened, and he needs to go back to sort of the beginning to explain this. So he's doing this. He sends a few of these letters to the vending machine company, and then gets contacted by the woman who works at the vending machine company, played by Naomi Watts, who has been reading his letters and actually finding them oddly sort of involving and oddly interesting, and actually sort of moving her to tears at one point. And the thing is, then it goes into this weird situation of he's dealing with all the things around him. He starts doing things like taking apart things, because as part of the things he sort of never saw and never dealt with in his life before was looking at things, take it apart to see what's wrong with it and then fix it. And he starts doing this literally with things throughout the film. And the thing is, there is this line, I heard it in another review said as well, and it's exactly true, that at one point there is a line in the film where it says everything has become a metaphor. And basically that's what the film becomes, a metaphor. The film does things like he starts taking things apart literally to try and figure out what it is that's wrong with them, and then doesn't even put them back together because he's taken them apart to such an extent that he's basically destroyed them and cannot put them back together. You have this whole thing of that him and the Naomi Watts character have this honest to God, as it starts off, almost like a stalker situation happening between them. That's really weird, because it's not just that he starts looking into it and then he goes to the vending machine company looking for her. She actually gets on the train that he's on in the morning and stalks him at one point as well, and she starts to sort of have this thing of this becoming sort of transfixed on him, as well as he starts to sort of she starts becoming almost addicted to his letters, and he starts becoming addicted to sending the letters to her and doing that, and it becomes this really weird situation, and it's not even romantic thing, it's just a weird friends looking for people to connect with in an odd kind of way. It's a film that, it's a shame, because the fact is that he all the way through the film is struggling to find a feeling, to figure out what, did he love his wife? He doesn't think he does. He doesn't think he did, and dealing with that, and yet at the same time as supposedly having a character who doesn't seem to have feelings, and so the audience should try and care about him. The problem is, it's really apathetic about that. It really kind of has this whole sort of melancholic feel to it. It's very repetitive as it goes on, and you just feel as if you just don't care by the end of the film. It's a film that it gets to a certain point, and the main character has been in such a stoop for that long and in such a weird place, it just loses all credibility of the characters and the thing is, it's a shame because the acting is good in it. Jake Gyllenhaal is good, as weird as he's given a role. Chris Cooper is the best thing about it. He's absolutely fantastic in the film. Naomi Watts is okay, but more than anything, it's the writing of her character. She's not given anything to do, anything to work with, and the thing as well, there's things in it that almost set up like there is something going on with her that we could see into. Things like she's always smoking cannabis. She says, and her son. She's got a son who says she smokes. He calls it cannabis because then it doesn't sound as bad as pot. And it's just like things like the whole thing of why does she smoke cannabis? Is there a reason? Is she's just into it? And things like that are never delved into, never explained, never even properly hinted at. That you just kind of sit there thinking, I don't care about this character because I know nothing about them. And yet with Gyllenhaal's character, you know a lot about him, and you don't care about him because he's not interesting. It's a poorly written script. I think it's well directed to as much of an extent that it can be, but I think the script is where the film has fallen apart.
Yeah, considering that this is directed by the guy who did Dallas
Buyers Club, yeah. And the thing is interesting, it's almost a complete opposite tonal shift with that, because Dallas Buyers Club was about this character who found out the situation and basically his life destroyed, and goes through that revelation, and then comes out the other end deciding, well, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to help other people, and starts having an awakening in this film. And the thing is, in this film, in Demolition, the character is wanting to have an awakening, but just can't, and just doesn't. And it's almost like having a record on repeat on the same track again and again and again and again. And it just gets so monotonous by the point you've heard the track 15 times, you don't care anymore.
It's unfortunate. I'm looking at the guy who wrote it, and the only other thing credited to him apart from shorts is a film that's coming out this year called The Choice.
Brian Sipe, yeah. It sounds like a film that would have been much better handled if it was in a. This is no offence to them, but somebody who's more attuned to that kind of film. There's no credibility to the characters. That's the thing. There isn't much character there. Is the problem.
It's unfortunate, right? Now, on the show we review films that can be really hard to actually do. It's happened before. There are films, for example, if we have to review films that revolve around the horrible subject of rape or anything like that, and so these are hard-hitting movies. These are movies that are really difficult to stomach, and so we're looking at Son of Saul, which won the best foreign language film at this year's Oscars. It's directed by first-time director Laszlo Nemes, and it centers around the character of Saul, who's played by Geza Rohrig. And it's centered in the Hungarian prison in Auschwitz in the Second World War, under the command of the Sonderkommandos, which was these group of soldiers which badly treat any person in these concentration camps, especially in this concentration camp, which is a crematorium, where all the dead bodies that were involved in any of the concentration camps in the area there, or anybody who got killed on the battlefield, were brought to here and burnt. So you can just imagine the people who worked, obviously the items were taken off them as well, and the women were the ones who worked in that area there, but it was the men who worked in the area where they were told to prep the bodies and get ready for them to be burnt. So you had piles and piles of bodies around. The film itself centers around the character of Saul, who discovers one day his son is brought into the concentration camp, and he doesn't want his son to go through the same kind of process as everybody else's, so he decides to try and escape from this camp and bury him, give him a proper Jewish burial. But obviously it's a really difficult thing to do, and with the help of the other prisoners in this camp, they ultimately try to escape. Now, what the film does is it follows the character of Saul fully. It feels like the camera is actually attached to Saul himself, and so it never deviates away from him. So when you've got instances where you see bodies getting burnt in the background, they're more of the background is sort of like blurred out slightly more so, and it's just Saul's reaction. Throughout the film itself, Geza Rohig plays Saul with absolutely nothing on his face. Everything has been sucked out of him. All his entire life has been sucked out of him. The only shred of any kind of life he has in him is his son, is his plight for him to get out there with his son and give him the only thing that he deserves, and that is the proper Jewish burial. And it's a really hard film to watch. It's the last time, and sorry to bring this up again, but it has themes. The last time I found a film this difficult to watch was Grave of the Fireflies. Now, it's a Studio Ghibli movie, but considering that the subject about two siblings struggling during the war with Japan and the bombings and how difficult it was for them to survive, that was the last film where I found it so hard to get to the end. And that's what this film is. It's such a difficult film to watch, but it's a movie that needs to be watched. It needs to be seen because it's just superbly directed by Laszlo Nemes. Considering that this is his directorial debut, you would think that he's been doing it for 20-30 years, considering how he handles the camera, how he handles just pretty much everything involved with the film. Gehez Rohrig, who plays Saul, is just superb, absolutely superb, considering that everything has to be sucked out of this character, and the only thing he has to latch on to is his son, is his plight to get him out of there. He needs to play it with such just expert timing and everything that he does, and it's, like I said, it's a really difficult film to watch, but it's such a rewarding film by the end of it. It's not, it's just not spoiling anything, but let's just say, considering the subject, don't expect anything happy to happen during the film. Don't expect a ray of sunshine. Don't expect even just a small moment where you might see a butterfly, because everything involved in this film is just really depressing. And that sounds really bad, but that's the way the film is. Its ultimate aim is. It's the kind of thing where it's not in Auschwitz as being this really nice place. It's a horrible moment in history, and it's a moment in history which a lot of people find difficulty of going back to. But when you've got films like this to show you what it was really like, then you just need to give everybody a pat on the back for what they've created. It's this absolutely superb film.
Okay, that's it for this week's cinema section. Hopefully we'll be back after we're playing a clip for one of the other shows that we are connected with, and we'll be back with this week's DVD and Blu-ray section after that.
The From Page to Screen movie. So they have 9 times out of 10 they have to send it back to you unopened or just throw it in the garbage can.
Things don't always look exactly as we envision our life to look, but sometimes it works out and turns out even better.
Gregor Fisher, his bacon number is 2 because he was appeared with January Jones in Love Actually, and January Jones and Kevin Bacon appeared in X-Men First Class together.
I've got to say, the very Harold and Kumar 3D Christmas, now that just makes me want to rush out.
It's about the acting, about the writing. That's really what theatre is for me.
Probably had more names than Prince or whatever. Never mind, there's a joke for the oldies. It'll be like, who's Prince? Who's he? I'd just like to see Mr. Freeze hiring his bad guys, going, right, okay, so you're a psycho, right, can you ice skate? Head over to iTunes, Spreaker and Stitcher and put in the search box From Page to Screen.
And welcome back. And Stuart, if you're listening From Page to Screen, please send us a new advert, because you really do need to change that now. It's badly timing.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. But we're back now with the Blu-ray and DVD section of the show, where we're looking at these 4 films. Chris Hemsworth. I'm trying to convince. It's Crimsworth. Yeah, Chris Hemsworth is back to the screen in The Heart of the Sea. We have Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg in Daddy's Home. We have a small indie time travel thriller in Synchronicity, and we have a zombie movie. I know this because it has zombie in the title.
Me and My Mates versus the Zombie Apocalypse.
Yeah, we do, and we also have our TV movie of the week, but kick things off with Blu-ray and DVD top 10. So at number 10 is Game of Thrones Series 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's a TV series, so we don't really discuss it, but I'm into it, and I'm enjoying the 6th season now so far, what's going on, and the big things have been happening this week and all, so, you don't watch it anymore though, do you?
I don't care. Honestly, people could spoil out of it for all I care. We would never do that on the show, but even if I saw spoilers, I wouldn't go in uproar because I haven't seen it. I haven't watched it past season 3, to be honest, so I don't care. Just like if people want to spoil The Walking Dead to me or anything like that, I
haven't watched that for a while, actually.
I don't care. And number 9 is Bridge of Spies,
which is Spielberg back to doing kind of good war story films. I mean that's kind of a bit of a contradiction in terms, but it's a good film from him about the whole thing of during sort of the Cold War and the Berlin Wall being put up, and the whole thing of the trade of prisoners basically between America and Russia, and it's got a great performance from Tom Hanks, but an even greater performance from Mark Rylance, who steals every scene he's in. But it's a film that it will kind of, if you stick with it all the way through to the end, there is that kind of that tugging at the heartstrings moment right near the end of the film that is, kind of a staple of Spielberg's films now.
Yep, number 8 is Lady in the Van,
which I thought is perfectly fine. Maggie Smith even is absolutely brilliant in the film. I didn't like the way it's told of the story of the main character having kind of a split personality, with his writer self always being sort of inside and almost being a voice at the window talking to his actual self. That I found very kind of oddly disconcerting and distracting, but it's an okay film, largely because of Maggie Smith's acting.
At number 7, and why the heck is it getting to number 7 considering that the film at number 13 should have been in the top 10, is Exposed.
Yeah, it's a mess of a film, and I mean a literal mess. It's like somebody took it's like, the kind of mess you'd get if you put a bomb in a paint can and just walked away, and you think, oh, it's going to splatter, it's going to completely cover them everywhere. If you've ever seen an episode they did that with Mythbusters, you see it doesn't. It just makes an absolute mess. That's this film.
Yeah, go and look at the meme where you see a brick getting thrown into a washing machine and how that reacts. That's the kind of reaction that I had when I saw it.
Actually, that's not a bad analogy. This film is the washing machine before the studio threw Keanu Reeves in it.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves is the brick.
I still don't get why this is at number 7 and Krampus only went in at number 13. Shame on you. Shame on you.
It is disappointing, although I didn't love Krampus either, really.
I absolutely adored it, but I think it's just at the fact that a Christmas movie released in April was probably a bit of a silly idea. At number 6 is The Good Dinosaur.
Perfectly fine, okay, animation's fun, although the dinosaur design I found really off-puttingly just simple. I just think it's fun. It's got some laughs to it. It's a fun film, but it is way missing the mark of what Pixar should be able to do and can do.
And number 5 is Ant-Man.
Surprised to see this pop back in, unless it's some kind of offer, or probably because of the things with obviously with Captain America: Civil War being released. I really loved it. I enjoyed it. It was a great way of doing a heist movie and doing it differently, and I think it was a great introduction of the character, and it's funny and it's witty and it's great fun.
At number 4 is Hunger Games: Mockingjay Part 2.
Yeah, which is not the best of the franchise. It is an ending to it. It's about 4 endings to it, but it's the problem is it is a film which if you watch it on its own, it is a weak film. If you watch it with Hunger Games: Mockingjay Part 1, it's a better film. But you shouldn't be doing it. It should be solid enough on its own to watch, and it's not. It has structural problems. It has scenes that lag. It has scenes in it which I really shouldn't be in there, and it has sequences which you sit there going, well, okay, didn't need that, but okay. It's a shame that it ended this way.
But number 3 is A New Entry for Joy,
which is an okay film. It's not the best one with David O. Russell. It is a muddle drama of kind of a mixed thing of this character who creates a mop, and goes about trying to sort of sell it to really solve her problems with life, and it's as ridiculous and as kind of moping as that sounds, apart from when it starts to get to the whole thing of the QVC sequence with Bradley Cooper. Then it comes to life, and you sit there and you go, wow, this is brilliant. Why wouldn't the whole film be about this? Why isn't the whole film about QVC?
Yeah. And number 2 is New Entry for Sisters,
which is not the worst of the typical comedy thing we've now come to get. It has some funny moments. It doesn't have a lot of them. It does at some moments delve into the whole gross out scene, but not massively. It never gets lost in it like a lot of the other films. It never relishes being in it. It actually does it and then goes, oh yeah, this is why gross out comedy is bad, in a sort of a way, and then deals with it and goes on. But it's a film that's too long. It has moments in it where the jokes are terribly badly paced and terribly badly done and don't work, and it's a passable rent at best. It's not anything special.
Yeah, it takes too long for the party scene to happen, and the party scene is just way too long, but it does involve a scene which involves a music box that you would never look at a music box ever again.
And I expect, probably as usual, the uncut version will have been released on the Blu-ray, which will mean that we'll get all the dirty jokes that they thought, oh, this will be funny. So it probably, hopefully they've got both versions, because normally the theatrical one is better. The uncut one it's the whole thing of less is more. Just because you can put something in a film doesn't mean you should. It won't be funny because you do.
And Tina Fey and Amy Poehler work well together, so
they do have a good They do have a good chemistry and a good friendship that comes through on the screen. The scenes of them are kind of nice as well when they're not having the party. The thing of them, just the scenes of them talk about. It is a film that it's too long and there's too much of that.
And at number 1, Star Wars.
Yeah. What more can we say about it? It's good. It's fun. It's a rehash of one of the original trilogy films largely, but it does what it says on the box a lot more than the prequel movies did.
Yep. New releases then.
In the Heart of the Sea, which is the movie directed by Ron Howard. It is based on the true events that happened that inspired the story of Moby Dick. That is the telling of a story in 1820 when a whaling ship was out obviously searching for whales to kill and hunt for their blubber and basically their oil, but what happened is that an unusual situation of a particularly large whale actually turned on them and damaged and ultimately sunk their ship. The movie starts out with the character played by Chris Hemsworth, who is a man who has been first mate on lots of ships. He's finally up for potentially being a captain of his own ship. Instead, though, he gets knocked back down to a first mate ship for a captain taking over, who is basically captain by title and not by skill, someone who has not been on the seas and not has really any experience, and so doesn't know what he's doing, which he kind of shows off as soon as they set out by accidentally taking the ship into a storm and risking all their lives. Here's a clip.
We'll accept your resignation upon our return to port. That will be all.
It was your order to set stunsails, sir.
That decision was sound. The men needed testing.
So you send them into a storm?
That was unlucky.
No, it was bad seamanship. And blaming misfortune is just plain weakness.
Damn your impertinence. Do you know who you're speaking to? My name is Captain George Pollard. Pollard! And you, Mr. Chase, no matter how many whale pins you may have on your lapel, are nothing more than the son of a farmer who's managed to bully his way into an officer's tunic. Now get out.
To return to port without a single barrel of oil would be a mistake, sir. And not behoove a man whose name is Pollard. Or Chase, for that matter. And the best thing for both of us would be to work all hours God sends us. Fill this ship with oil and be home inside a year and rid of one another as quickly as possible. Trust me, I am every bit as desirous of that as you. Of course, that is the captain's decision.
All the way through the film, it's actually told. These sequences are told by flashback, because you have what's really happening is the actual writer Herman Melville is played in the film by Ben Whishaw. Herman Melville is the one who went on to write Moby Dick, and it's actually him visiting the last survivor of the ship, and actually the last person who is alive to tell the tale of what happened so many years before, played by Brendan Gleeson. And these scenes do have some sort of good reverence between the two of them, and Brendan Gleeson's character. You feel the pain in his performance. It's great performance from Brendan Gleeson in the film. The rest of the film is not so great, to be honest. Cillian Murphy, he turns up as one of the men on board the ship. You have the whole sequence of them stranded at sea for a time. You have some of them, then they arrive at an island, and the situation of them sort of almost becoming like a grown-up Lord of the Flies happening with them. And it's a film that it takes this idea, and the problem is, obviously going into it, you can't not know of Moby Dick, and have the expectation that this is going to be, as much as it is the true supposed story of what Moby Dick is based on, it isn't Moby Dick. Moby Dick is a fictional telling of this tale with embellishments to make it into an interesting story, and to make it into a story about the whole thing of the Captain Ahab who will not give up on his hunt, who will not give up on his revenge. And the film doesn't have that feeling. It doesn't have any feeling in it that goes to that strength, to that depth of what you want there to be in something which inspired Moby Dick. And it's a shame. I mean, it's not a shame that if it really happened like this and that happened, but it's a shame that the film isn't able to find something in it that's going to be such an emotional thing that you can connect with it and you feel it. It just never gets to that height. It always just kind of has a simple down the middle thing. It never gets to a point where you're going, oh yeah, or oh, yeah, I feel that, or no, oh yeah, I don't care about that, or I hate him, or I want him to be. There's nothing through the whole film that really gets you excited emotionally, and that's a problem. It's just it needs something like that, and it doesn't have it at all. It's a shame. Ron Howard is definitely a good director. He's not really doing his best with this. He could be doing a lot better. He could obviously be doing a lot worse. But I think it's a film that it's just very lackluster, because there's not really anything there to make it as good a film as there potentially could be.
I pretty much agree with you. It's just the film itself, when it is telling the story of the voyage and them trying to get all this whale blubber and ambergris and all that kind of stuff. It's just not interesting at all. When oh my god, it's a whale. Okay, fine. There's a big, huge, massive thing in the sea. You're gonna get killed by it. You're gonna have trouble by it. When they do manage to capture one and they throw Tom Holland in the middle of it, you go, I feel really sorry for you having to go inside that thing, because this is sort of like a metaphor of what the film is actually like. And don't get me started on the CGI. The way it's actually constructed, the way they do the storm compared to what's happening on the ship is so badly implemented. You've got CGI, and then you feel like there's people off camera just throwing buckets of water over them, because it just look like that, the kind of thing that you would see on a Saturday night entertainment show, or constructed like that. It's just really badly handled, and it distracts you. When I was watching it, I was going, I can't concentrate on here because I'm more pointing out how bad the CGI is. And so, even though the Brendan Gleeson stuff is really interesting, the Brendan Gleeson, Ben Whishaw stuff is the more interesting side of it. It would have been a much more interesting film, in my opinion, anyway, if it was a biography about the creation of the story of Moby Dick, rather than the telling of sort of like the influence behind it. It would have made a much more interesting film. But because of the fact that Ron Howard had to make a blockbuster movie, it was released in Boxing Day over here and Christmas Day in America, he had to make that kind of blockbuster film. By the looks of things, he shoehorned in the big set pieces when they just didn't even belong to the film.
Yeah, and we talk about the effects as well. Did it not have some of the worst CG town effects at the beginning, and the bit when they're sort of going out to the ship on the little rowboats. It's some of the worst green screen that I've seen in recent years. I really was kind of like, wow, that's bad.
It's not like you were watching a video game just being played. It was really that bad.
It was pretty terrible.
So it's just unfortunate. There is a strand in there which works, but it's going to take a lot to get through to get to that really interesting element of the film, which is annoying. Daddy's Home, complete different tact. It's a comedy directed by Sean Anders and starring Will Ferrell, who plays Brad, who's the stepfather to 2 children, and he's now married to Linda Cardellini's character, who plays Sarah. Thrown into the fold one day is Dusty, ex-husband of Sarah and the father of the 2 children, and he decides to show up, and this sort of like annoys Brad because he wants to be the father to these 2 children. He's unable to have children himself, told in a stupid plot contrivance, but it has to be told somehow. And so he wants children, so he wants to be a good dad to them, and unfortunately that's not the case because they don't seem to latch onto it. When you do throw Dusty's character in as well, he is this perfect father who's played by Mark Wahlberg. It just makes things even worse. Here's a clip.
Oh, good morning, Dusty.
Hey.
You're up and at 'em?
Yeah, I got up early and did a quick 20 miles, and then I whipped up a pan of piping hot cinnamon rolls for my family. And I made one for you, too.
Wow. Very impressive, thank you.
Good morning, gang.
There you go.
Smell Kenny. Our real dad is a super duper good cook.
Uh-huh.
There you go, guys.
Yeah, looks an awful lot like Cinnabon.
Well, thank you, Brad. What a nice thing to say.
It tastes exactly like Cinnabon. In fact, same shape, same swirl, same frosting.
Well, now you're starting to embarrass me, but I do appreciate the compliment. Morning, Sarah Bear.
Morning.
Hey, listen, guys. You know, families can be ever-growing and changing things. But there's someone here now that I hope you guys can learn to love. Okay? Come here, boy!
A doggy! Yay!
You brought a dog home?
Yeah, is that a problem? I mean, you seemed really into it while I was teeing it up.
Dusty, how old is that thing?
I guess him to be around 15. I mean, I found him this morning living in a storm drain. I named him Tumor because of how much he grows on something.
The film is not funny at all.
Really?
Yeah.
You didn't laugh once?
I didn't laugh once.
Not even at Will Ferrell with the motorbike and the end result of that?
No, because that was shown in the trailer, and so it might have been funny in the trailer, but when it's shown in context in the film itself, it's just a groan from me. It's just the worst thing about the film is it falls down to the lowest common denominator. It's a 12-year, but it falls down to the lowest common denominator by doing jokes about homosexuality, by doing jokes about race, and you think, you know what, I thought we were done with this in 2014, when evidently we're not. We're still getting a raft of these kind of films, and this is no better than the rest that's gone before it. Will Ferrell, to be honest, I find him really unfunny. I'm not much of a fan of his anyway, but I just don't find him that funny. I just find him quite annoying. Mark Wahlberg, his character is not supposed to be ultimately likable, even though he tries to be, and I didn't like him, to be honest. It's just the whole film itself for me just fell flat, and everything that it was trying to do, when it was trying to be funny, it was forcefully trying to be funny. When it tried to even bring in any element of drama into the movie, it just didn't work at all. It's overly too long. It's an hour and a half too long. So in other words, the entirety of the runtime of the film itself, just nothing about the film I actually enjoyed. I just didn't like it.
I'm surprised. I mean, I didn't think it was absolutely brilliant, but I thought it was good. I thought the chemistry between, especially because after the other guys, I thought the chemistry with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell was really good, and I thought it came through in this as well. I found the sort of the Mark Wahlberg's character, how he was, his motives and everything, I thought to be quite funny and such. And there were a few gags in it that made me laugh quite loudly. You know, I didn't think it was by any means a really brilliant comedy, but it was an easy, fun going film. You know, I laughed at it, and that was it.
I just found it really annoying because it went, you know what, we've got the stereotypical black guy in the film itself, let's introduce him, let's introduce a few racial comedy elements to the movie, let's introduce a few homosexual elements to the movie, let's just rehash pretty much everything that's been seen before, and that's it. That's all it felt like to me. It took jokes from other films, when they weren't even funny in the other films, and then said, let's make a hodgepodge of a movie where we get two supposed really good comedians. Well, Mark Wahlberg is not much of a comedian, but he has shown that he can do comedy. Let's get them squaring up against each other, bettering each other with everything that they do in the film, and supposedly it's going to be funny, when in fact it's just sigh. It's not awful. I've seen many, many worse comedies than this, but it's just very sigh.
Okay, from sigh to sci-fi.
No, I set you up there, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. So you can't take it back. It's Synchronicity is the movie next, which is directed by Jacob Gentry. It's co-written by him and Alex Orr. It is a small kind of feature film. I'm presumably independent. I don't know, but it is a small budget film that is basically with the main character of Jim, played by Chad McKnight, who has built this device, which is an attempt to basically build wormholes. And if for a quick science basic thing, if you don't really know what they are by now, because they've been featured in so many things, so you should have an understanding, but if not, basically a wormhole is what lets you jump from one point to another. It lets you open up a hole in space, a doorway that connects two places. Interstellar had one sort of thing, that's what it was, and it connects it here in another solar system, billions of miles away. His plan is to build one that will work to allow instantaneous travel across to the other side of the world and such. He's dealing with the problems, obviously, of trying to get this done, the funding and things. One of the people he goes to is a very wealthy businessman played by Michael Ironside, who is basically the only one who produces this material, this rare material that he needs to do it. The problem is that when he's doing the first experiment, he does it. He receives something through the wormhole when he turns it on, and then starts to realise that it's not actually a wormhole through to another place, it's through to potentially another time. Here's a clip.
The hard cost of 1 unit of MRD is $5 million, give or take a little. What for you is a small fortune is, for me, negligible. I've lost larger sums than the cushions of my sofa. But you need MRD for your machine to work. Therefore, you come to me, hat in hand, begging.
49% of my project? Hardly makes you my boss.
Well, this is true, but you need tangible proof that your prototype works. Evidence that you've actually created a traversable wormhole. And to do that, you need to be able to send the original specimen, which is registered as KMC-014, back through to the other side. Now, it just so happens that I own all copyrights, commercial and private, for all KMC products, which means this is your lucky day. I'm willing to sell to you those rights for, let's say, 50% of your operation. Now, if you put that together with the 49% I already own, let's crunch the numbers. That leaves you with 1% for your efforts. Now, if you want to finish this experiment that leads to the invention of time travel, then you, Mr. Beale, work for me. You are an employee.
So, having found out that he's being screwed over by this man, what he decides to do is he's building a machine, and they have to obviously finish the loop, basically, of whatever has come back, they have to send back in the first place in the future. So when they're sending it back, instead he decides what he's going to do is go back himself and stop this all from happening. This sounds complicated, and it kind of is, but you heard in that clip there, it was a lot of talking, a lot of detail, and it's a film that isn't afraid to be technical, isn't afraid to try and actually properly have the science in there in some form or another. It has scenes where there are people sitting around or talking or discussing things, and then it also has scenes to do with time travel and the person who's trying to go through events, and it's written very cleverly. You have some scenes you see happen early, some scenes you see happen later, you see scenes happen out of sequence, which is what's really cleverly done, but they all make sense and it works for the kind of the time of it, the timeline of it. I thought it was really well sort of set up. In some places the execution is not as good as it could be, but for a small independent sort of film, it does have it does hit far above its weight. It punches far above its weight than you would expect. It does have this amazing visual style to it as well. It's got this kind of tech noir, Blade Runner-esque future style to it. Everything is dark, dimly lit, but it's all, you know, futuristic looking, and it's all mostly sort of nighttime sequences, or it's very much clouded and dark and dusk, and the buildings are lit up in a certain way that they look really kind of very much this kind of block buildings and that sort of thing, and it's visually interesting as well as mentally interesting. It's a bit exhaustive if you're not into that sort of thing. You watch it, and you know, the general person who watched something like Back to the Future and gets a slight headache from the likes of the story of that would probably watch this and end up in a coma or something, induced by just their mind going mental and just going what. But I got into it, I enjoyed it, I was paying attention, and I got all the details, and I really had fun with it. I really enjoyed it. It shows what can be done on a kind of a micro budget. I don't know exactly what it's made. It's not on hundreds of millions of dollars. It's going to be a low budget film, but it shows what can be done as long as you're working from a decent attempt at a script, and you focus on the story more than just the visuals. But it's nice to have the visuals in there as well.
I don't expect anything different from the guy who directed the movie The Signal.
No, I mean, I haven't seen The Signal, but I want to see The Signal. I'm curious now because of the fact that it's... Wait, Signal... Is The Signal... Have I seen The Signal?
There's 2 films called The Signal. There was one released last year, and there was one released in 2009. It's the 2009 film that I'm talking about.
Right.
That's the one
I
which
think
is
I've
sort of
seen...
like set in the UK, and it's about a signal that comes through the radio waves and televisions and stuff like that, which makes people do weird things.
Right, no, it's the other one I have seen, so I haven't seen that one, but I'm kind of curious now to try and track that down and see it, because it's, you know, it's an interesting... I want to see what this guy can do, because he's definitely got skill to make something interesting.
Now, you think that you have the smallest budget of a film this week? Nope, I think I have it with Me and My Mates versus a Zombie Apocalypse. It's made for just under £500,000. So
okay.
It's very...
I'm just trying to see if I can find anything that tells me how much Synchronicity it was made for, but I don't see anything, so I'll keep looking.
You have it on the IMDb page or
yeah.
something like that, but I don't know if we're on there or not. But yeah, Me and My Mates versus the Zombie Apocalypse. Like I said, it's a very micro-budget Australian comedy horror film. Very simple premise. It's about a group of people who are locked inside this abandoned cricket club, and an onslaught of zombies are aiming towards them, and it's up to them to try and survive. There is no clip for it. You've got a fleeting appearance by Jim Jeffries, the Australian comedian, and it's just like I said, it's about them making wisecrack jokes, them killing zombies in sort of like over-the-top disgusting ways, getting shears to their heads and chopping them off, things like that. You've got gross-out humour jokes regarding around one of the characters who's obsessed with the part of the male body, who he thinks that if he sees the body part and it's out of sync or out of the way he should actually look, he can definitely tell that they're going to turn into a zombie. It's a weird reasoning, but he thinks that it sounds, and so there's a few moments in the film where he'll sit with a few of the jokes. There's a few moments in the movie. I was eating my dinner when I was watching it. I don't get grossed out by seeing people their bodies getting ripped apart and all that kind of stuff. It's fine with me. Like, for example, I was watching In the Heart of the Sea, and the scene where I was eating my tea was when they were actually excavating the blubber from inside the wheel. So
lovely.
I was eating steak at the time, so it makes it even better. But I was eating that going, you know what, this isn't affecting me whatsoever. It's the same with Me and My Mates versus Zombie Apocalypse. It's comedy, horror comedy. It's not going to blow the roof off or anything like that. You'll find a few jokes that might be funny. You'll find a lot of them just being wincing, but it's okay for what it is. Small budget comedy horror. Nothing any special than that. And that's it for the new releases of this week's TV movies of the week then.
I've got one which is we're currently at 8 minutes past 11. One of my choices is a movie that's actually on tonight at 11:25, so we are going to finish in time for it, and that is Killer Joe on Film 4. So Monday night tonight, and the other 2 films I've got down to look out for. It hasn't been shown on any channel for a while that I've seen, but if you haven't ever seen it, one of the better action films ever made. is tomorrow night, Tuesday the 3rd of May at 9 o'clock on Film 4. That's Speed. The Keanu Reeves Jan de Bont one, not the second one. Speed 2 is atrociously bad, but the first one, which is actually a really good action film and is repeated on Sunday the 8th at 9 o'clock as well. And my other one is for a kids film, because I noticed it was on, and I love this film. I think it's one of their I think it's one of Disney's best animated films, and it's classic animation style as well. It's not CG animation, and that is Lilo and Stitch, and that's on Sunday the 8th of May on Channel 4 at 2:05 p.m.
And so, what's your choice out of that lot?
It's Killer Joe. Killer Joe is just a phenomenal film, and it was the first one really that kind of showed, there's Matthew McConaughey doing really, really good stuff on screen and being really weird and freaky, and yet I can't turn away.
Well, I've got 5, and none of them are on Film 4.
Oh, okay.
Surprisingly. So
I did have a look, but I didn't see much. But I didn't have a lot of time to look through all the other sites. It makes it so difficult to try and find some of them sometimes.
I'll actually throw you a website which you'll find very helpful. On Movies for Men, which is a very rare that we actually use this channel, on Wednesday the 4th at 10:45 p.m. It's a small little British horror thriller movie called Exam. It's a really good film. Pollyanna McIntosh is in the movie itself. It's very well created. It's just set in a small room, and it's about a group of people who think that they're taking an exam for their ultimate job. And you can obviously understand where it might actually go from there. It's very well created, very well tense as well. Insidious is on E4 on Friday the 6th at 9 o'clock. The second one's awful, the third one's really good. I really like the third one. But the first one, even though a lot of people take the mickey out of it for the Darth Maul kind of character, I still think it's very, very creepy, directed by James Wan. On BBC 2 on Saturday the 7th at 10:50 is Zodiac. The David Fincher film.
I do love that film. I think it's a very, very underrated film. I think a lot of people.
Channel as well.
Yes.
Too, so no ads, but definitely worth a watch. It's really well created. It's very slow paced. It's not one of those movies where you're going to get a lot of stuff happening in the film, but it's definitely one that you need to pay attention and concentrate on it. But it's ultimately rewarding.
It is a long film, a long sit as well, because it is near pretty much 3 hours as well.
Yeah, on and 2 on Sunday night. 1 on the Horror Channel at 9 o'clock. Hard Candy. So I recommend any time when that film's on. David Slade's film. He went off to direct a Twilight movie, but I can forgive him for that. And he also did 30 Days of Night straight after he did Hard Candy. Brilliant double bill, that one, but Hard Candy definitely worth a watch. And on BBC 2 on Sunday the 7th at 11 o'clock, Robot and Frank, which is a Frank Langella film about he gets a robot as a companion in a way. It's just to help him out, but it's a really well made drama. It's very well acted. It's just a very well made drama. But my choice out of that lot there, it's because it very rarely gets mentioned, is Exam on Movies for Men, Wednesday the 4th at 10:45. Even though I think I've got a good selection of films in that lot.
It is. They're all really good. Well, I don't know about Insidious for me. I don't like the horror films, but everything else there was really, really good choice of films there.
But Exam is my choice of movie of the week. What is your overall movie of the week?
Do you really need to ask?
Yeah, I know you're going for Captain America. For me, it's Son of Saul.
No, Captain America Captain America Civil War for me. Sorry.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely Son of Saul. And that was the film that I was indicating at the start of the show that is going to be in my top 10 of the year. And it wasn't Captain America Civil War. So we might have a little Civil War of our own at the end of the year, whether it makes the overall top 10 of the year. But for my personal top 10 of the year, it won't. Whereas will definitely make a mention, but where Son of Saul will definitely be in my top 10 of the year. And that's it for this week's show. We'll be back next week, next Monday. Make sure you check out the website mondaymovieshow.co.uk. On Sunday, I post it the day before the show goes out anyway. So
I actually did write the review for a written review for Captain America Civil War on the website, so it's up there. Something new to read on there too.
Yeah, and so if you know when the show is going to go out on air, because I put up the show post the day before it does. So keep an eye out on the website. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Monday Movie Show, on Twitter @Monday Movie Show. I'm there at Cryptic Tadpole. Andrew's there at HDVD. You can also email us at mondaymovieshow@yahoo.com. From page to screen, you heard the advert there involving Prince, which it still definitely does need to change. From Stuart, just follow him on Twitter @From Page to Screen. Tell him we sent you. Tell him that you need to change his advert. followthenerd.com is where you can find the podcast. Goes up on there. You can also find it on iTunes and any of the Android devices there. You've also got Following the Gamer, which I did a show with Shane on Thursday just gone because there was 3 big pieces of video game news. It's back properly on Saturday with Al, the bald gamer dude. He's actually making an appearance on a podcast. It's been a while, but we managed to rope him in because Jerry, who used to host the show with us, is no longer hosting the show. So Al is deciding to step in for next week's show, which is again Saturday. Details will be on my Twitter feed. So we'll play you out with a clip for a film that we'll be reviewing on next week's show. It's Bad Neighbours 2, sequel starring Seth Rogen and...
I'm blanking on names as well now.
I forgot his name now.
Yeah, Zac Efron.
Yeah, High School Musical guy. But Zac Efron, Seth Rogen comedy sequel involving them going up against a sorority this time, rather than a frat house. And so until next week, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Here's the plan. I'm gonna get up on stage and I'm gonna dance, distracting the girls just long enough for Mac to run around and steal the weed. Kelly, Paula, I need you both to drive Getaway. I can't have you running around here because you're pregnant.
Wait. Just you dancing is enough to distract the entire sorority? I don't know about that.
Yeah. That'll work.
It'll work.
It
usually works. I don't even know where we are right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right, what's wrong? No! I don't have the baby oil.
It's a big deal.
No, it's the most important thing. With baby oil, you get like 2 extra lines here.
Really?
Yes. Hold on. Damn it. All right, let's go. Oh, that's hot. Oh, that's really hot. Ow, it burns. Woo. All right, rub it in. Jesus. Whew. Oh my God.
Really?
Get it all over.
What? We're in a rush, Mac.
Come on, Mac. Get his thighs.
Okay.